Choosing the right ground bait can be an absolute minefield this time of the year, but in this video I'm going to show you my favourite mix for this time of the year, the ratios to mix it in, how to mix it, and 2 different ways of feeding it. So I've got the bait here on the side tray. That's my 3 different ground baits. Let's crack on. I'll show you how to measure out the ratios, how to mix it to start with, and then how to mix it ready for feeding. So let's get on with it. So the first thing to be done is measure the quantities of ground bait we're going to be mixing. We've got 3 different things. We've got crushed expander, a mainstay of any winter mix in my opinion, carp or silvers. Then I've got a nice potent bit of green fish meal, green supreme, and then finally some sweet F1 dark. I think that the combination of them 3 is just a magnificent mix this time of the year, whether you want to catch big bags of skimmers, whether you want to catch F1's a tunnel barn, or if you want to catch carp. That mix will do everything for you. So the first thing to do, because it's the winter time, there's a lot of like big bits in this ground bait. So I've got a pinky riddle there. What I'm going to do is put my ground bait through, once it's dry, through a pinky riddle, discard all those big bits. You know, I don't mind there being big flakes and stuff in the ground bait because it's more sort of, it's more versatile then, because I can use it summer or winter. Like, I'd be happy to use this mix down the edge. There's that much big stuff in it, so you can use it for a bit of everything. It's very versatile. But it's winter now, we want to be on the back foot, so it's going to go through a pinky riddle to start with. So the ratios, just get yourself a little cup. I've got a 250ml pot there. You don't need to mix loads up. I don't think there's anything worse than mixing up too much bait and at the end of a session throwing away good bait. It breaks your heart. So I don't need a lot of ground bait for today. So I've got my 250 cup. I'm just going to go, and this ratio is all I use all winter. So 2 cups of crush. So there's 500ml of crush there. And then just going to go 1 dark and 1 green. Like that. So they're in there, and then it's just a case of letting it go through the riddle, and then you'll end up with all that there, a lot of flakes and crushed pellet and all that. So I'll get rid of that. But there's plenty of ducks here, they'll eat that, I'm sure. So we're left now with a nice dry fine mix. So next protocol, mix it up. So the ratios are done. It's through the pinky riddle. Next thing is to add water and mix it. Now I want it to be, I don't want it, to mix it and still be dry. I want it to be over wet when I'm mixing it, so all those little particles soak in as much water as they can. That's how I want it for the way we're going to feed it today. So I've got a pint of water there. I've got 1000ml ground bait. So I'm going to give it 3/4 of that. Let's mix it up. Good mix in the bottom of the bucket. And that's nice and wet now. But you'll be amazed by how much water this mix will take on, especially with crushed expander. It's just like a sponge. It'll suck all our water in. So let's just put that aside for 20 minutes. Get some kit ready, we'll come back to it, riddle it, and then I can show you the 2 different ways I like to feed it. So we've plumbed up, it's been about 20 minutes since we mixed that, and that is absolute perfect now. So next job, away with the pinky riddle, out with the ground bait riddle. So I'm just going to pour that on there, get all the bits up the bottom, and then just push this just through the riddle there. So it's all the way through, and then what you'll get left with is a nice, like fluffy but damp mix. So this is the kind of consistency we're talking about. Like that. That is absolutely perfect. So from there, there's 2 different ways I like to feed it. One is where you feed a little bit more volume, so I let it mix it on my side tray. I'll have a little bowl of water, and I'll have this mix in a bait box. I'll take some of this original mix, put it in a bait box, and just keep flicking a little bit of water on it until it goes a bit more damp than that, and I'll simply just feed that loose. Won't squeeze it into a bowl or nothing, just feeding it loose, making it like a little area for the fish to feed over. That is a deadly way of feeding groundbait, especially on your shallower sort of commercial venues up to about, I'd happily feed it like that up to about 5 foot. The other way, what I'll show you on the side tray, is mixing it up until it's almost like a paste consistency, like a sloppy paste, and then that's all you'll be doing. The complete opposite to how we fed our loose stuff is just feed tiny little, like thumbnail sized wet balls of groundbait. That is probably one of the most deadly ways of using groundbait and catching on these commercial venues. So let's get it on the side tray, and then we can have a little bit more of a look in depth of how we're going to feed both our lines. Same bait, just 2 different ways. So we're on the box now. There's our groundbait that we just put through the riddle, and what I've got, 2 empty bait boxes, a little unit with some water in it, and I've got a few casters and a few dead maggots. So the first line I'm going to feed is going to be our loose line. We'll call it our loose line. So for that, what I want to do is take out a nice sort of palmful of our groundbait. That's just sort of our on the dry side. And what I'm going to do with my little bit of water I've got by here, I'm just going to flick just a little bit of water on there, you know, making sure it's like, you know, not soaking, but, you know, nicely over wet. I don't want to feed this groundbait. If it's too dry, it'll just like hang in the surface, float off, and it won't have enough weight in it to get down and settle nicely on the bottom. It will just linger mid-water and everywhere, and that is an absolute nightmare for pulling in little nuisance fish. So that's still touch on the dry side, so a little bit more. Just do it a little bit at a time. Don't give it a big blob of water, because you'll end up with soup if you're not careful. You've probably got about just over 4 foot of water, so I want to make sure it's nice and damp. A little bit more, and there we are. That's sort of the consistency I'm looking for to feed it loose. So we're like that, quite stodgy, but not like, you know, not like soup. So in that, I'm just going to put a very odd dead red maggot in there and an odd caster, just to start. So we can change it as we go. So that's our, we're going to feed on the right hand line, so that's our loose line. Now the next line, and this has probably caught me more fish than any other type, you know, of mixing of groundbait, whether it's Cure, Viaduct, Morelands Farm, even Porth Reservoir. This is an absolutely deadly way of doing it. So again, a nice palmful of stuff in there, a palmful of dry, and this time I'm going to really let him have some water on this. So a couple of big dollops of water. Boy, you'll have to watch this. You'll have to add a little bit through the day, because what it does is sets almost like a paste. It'll just take all that water and set, so you'll have to keep slopping it up a little bit. So a little bit more until you start starting to get to the consistency. Now that's just about bang on, I'd say. So I'm going to just pop an odd dead red in there with that, a little bit of food content, an odd caster. Oh, that's almost dried out again now, so a little bit more again. And then I'm going to be feeding this in tiny little marbles. This is more of a line where you would fish with like a little cup on and keep plopping little bits of bait in, whereas the other way is sort of a more feed it, fish it out, then refeed. So what we got for this one, that's our wet little ball of stodge. You can see how wet, probably hear it, how wet it is. So that's what we're going to be going for. Right, let's get the 2 lines fed, and then we can sort of have a go on each and see which one is the best today. So onto the fishing. Both lines have been fed. Right hand line is our loose line, left hand line is our little bit of slop line. But like I said earlier on, fishing them is fish and feeding them is 2 different ways. With our loose line, it's more of a drop in, catch a few. When you feel as if the pegs go in, then top it up. Whereas on this little bit of slop, I'll be fishing with a little pot on. That's just a small size guru without the lid on it. And I'll probably be putting a little thumbnail of slop in almost every plop in. So 2 different ways of fishing and feeding them. Both are deadly effective on their days, but you'll often find one will be better than the other. So let's ship in. I think we'll start on our little bit of slop, just give that line a little bit of time to sort of rest, and then catch a few fish off each hopefully, and at the end we can draw a conclusion which has been the best today. But it's always worth having both of them in your armoury, because on their day each one can be absolutely deadly. So let's get on and catch a few fish. Right, let's ship in over our little blob we put in then. So what I'm going to do, just lay the rig in. I've got 2 dead reds on, and then just hold the rig still over that little blob we put in. Let it all straighten out and then just lower it in. So I'm right over that little thumbnail of stuff that I put in there. And I'm just holding on to my little back shots. I've got a blacked out bristle, dotted down to a mere pimple, which is perfect. So let's see what kind of response we get off that initial little bit of slop we put in. Now I just seen a little bubble just came up there then, just to the left of where my rig is. So there's a fish mooching around there somewhere. Let's just see if we get a little dink off of it. Oh, little indication then, little jab. Fish about the place there. Oh, was a bite. over literally no bait, and pretty quick as well, to be honest. I've seen an odd little bubble come up, little indication on the float, and then just sat there a little bit longer. A nice little dink. And that looks like a nice big skimmer on there. So what I'm going to do now, because it was such a little amount of bait, I'm going to pop that little cup on, a little blob of slop in it. Where is he? Here. Now these skimmers absolutely love that little cloud that comes off the slop. Keep still, boy. There you go, look. A nice skimmer. So, the case now of on with the pot. I'm just going to go with a single red maggot this time. So I've got a single dead red on there. And then there's our little pot. Push that on. And then I'm going to feed literally maybe even less than that. That much in my pot. Probably half fills up my little pot. So just ship it out in line with the marker. Hold your little pot on the surface, so it just plops out, and then I'm just laying my rig right in over that one, over that little blob. Let it straighten out, so it's all in a nice line, and then just drop it in then. There we go. Straight over that little blob we put in. That's the good thing with this method. This is a brilliant way of starting your session because you get such instant response on it. Whereas the other way we fed, that sort of needs a little bit more time, but when they do come on it, you tend to get more numbers of fish turn up. So I'm not really sure what this is in a minute. I think. Oh, couldn't tell you what that is. That could be anything. What is it? It is a hybrid, and it's going ballistic. Why is that fighting so hard? So that is 2 fish and 2 drops over the slot, and I keep going for a couple more drops on this, and then keep an eye on that loose groundbait we fed, because when they do come on, a lot of the time they give themselves away. You'll see like little pinhead bubbles coming up on it, so I'll just keep an eye. When I see a little blow stand happen, you'll probably be tempted to swing around over there, and hopefully we can get a run of them one after another without having to refeed. So let's bait back up and drop back in on the slop. There we are. It's absolutely solid on this little bit of slop. I think that's the 6th fish in 6 drops now over those little thumbnails. It's such a good fish attractor, that slop, because as the little blob sinks, you get like a little vapor trail coming off the back of it, and that is like an absolute magnet for drawing fish into your peg. just a little column of something falling through the water. It was literally like a little cloud coming off of it. What's this time? So I think what we're going to do, I have just seen an odd little blow on the right hand line. So I'm going to unhook this little chap, try and catch another one fish off the slot, and let's have a look if anything's turned up over that loose fed line. There you go. It is just absolute shelling peas there now. Over literally no bait at all. I'm sure it's just the consistency that groundbait's mixed up in is what makes it so good. There's hardly any loose feed in it, just an odd maggot, an odd caster. But it's just an absolute fishy chuck on this stuff. So I'm going to net this fish. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pop a little blob of slop in on my line, and I'm just going to swing around because I've just seen another little blow, 2 blows on our more positive loose groundbait line. So let's see if we can drop in there and catch 3 or 4 without having to refeed it. So that is the plan, at least. Oh, look. Big skimmers. Brilliant. Okay, so one thing to remember, just got that little tiny marble of slop, is when you're feeding the slop, you don't want to sort of plop it in from height. You want to feed it. You just want to hold your little pot on the surface and just let it come up on its own, and then the pressure of the water will help keep it together till it gets to the bottom. I don't want it to like splat on the surface and open up too early. So it's just a case of just like, you know, when you're potting your micros in for F1s against an island or whatever you're going to do, just sort of hold the pot on the surface. It's exactly the same as this. So I'll just lower it in, hold the pot on the top, that's out, and then just rig straight over the top. Go. Tiny little dink on that. That. Right, so we've had an unbelievable run of fish over that little bit of slop. I think we probably had, I don't know, a dozen or 15 like big skimmers off of it. But all the time I've been keeping my beady little eye on the right hand line where we fed that loose groundbait at the start, and there's blows coming up all the time. We've probably been fishing about an hour and 40, so I think now is the right time to drop in. Those fish sort of settled on that quite nicely now. Now's the time to drop in and just see if we can finish the session and have a nice sort of run of fish just on this line to finish off. They're blowing there now as I speak, so I'm going to get baited up and get a rig in there. I'm just going to go in with a single dead red on this one. So let's see. yes, look at that. Instant. That had been in there, well, I don't even know, a couple of seconds. Tiny little dink. And clogging that. The nice thing about this line, when you put a little bit more bait in, a bit of a volume of bait, the fish tend to sit over it and settle, and by the time you've gone on it, they're quite happy milling round over that feed. So I'm hoping now, like, we won't have to feed nothing again now. It'll just be a case of dropping in, you know, I've caught up to a dozen fish without topping up before now, so we'll have to play it by ear, see what happens, but normally, you know, we'll catch 4 or 5 off this before we even have to contemplate refeeding it. There you go. Bit of slime in my mouth, but nice skimmer. Like I said, they do give themselves away when they're there. I've just been watching the last sort of 15 minutes. Just like little pinheads popping up here, there and everywhere. So, you know, obviously you're not going to see it if it's windy, but on flat, calm days like this, you can sort of rotate your lines just by keeping an eye on what's happening there. So back in again, single red. Boys have decided to start cutting down a tree, so that's that noise you can hear in the background. Hopefully they stop soon. But I'm just shipping out now and I've just seen another 2 little blows come up on it. So, back in with the rig, just lay it in nicely. Quite a few bubbles just dinking up here, there and everywhere now. But they're not like on the slop line. I just replumbed it up, and because that bait is in such a tiny little area, they've dug the bottom out on my left hand line, so I had to move spots. I come a little bit closer, but with this I've replumbed it up and it's fine. But because we've got a nice spread of bait, they're not concentrated on one bit and digging out the bottom. It's a little dink, well, not a dink, but just a pull. So you find they don't dig it out as much when you feed it loose like this, but when you feed those little, like, marbles of slop, they are. Ooh, he just pinged off that one. When you feed those little marbles of slop, because they're concentrated on like a 10p piece, they will, you know, dig the bottom out. So we're back in. That's 2 bites and 2 drops. Unfortunately the last one just popped off, but they're still blowing there. The fish are still there, so there's no need to even think about topping up at the minute. I won't top this line up until either bites completely stop, or you start catching an odd little sprat or a little roach or whatever. But as it is now, look, I just had a little one of them again on the float. So there's just like no need to even think about feeding this a minute. And to be honest, I probably won't even feed this again now until we finish. Oh, what's a bite? Missed that one. That is. Like here. Let's go in. Bloody nappy. Come on. That is going chicken oriental. Oh my god, it's already down the edge here. What is going on with that? Oh my god. Rapper. Look at this. Down the edge, man. Oh my god. Raise up. Stop, man. Oh, going? Get off. Jesus. Oh. Bloody hell bells. After all that, I don't know what the hell that fish was doing there then. Absolute lunatic. Broke us. Something wrong with that fish. So we're back in after hooking that wretched carp that just went absolutely ballistic. I ended up with 4 pegs down to my left, down the edge. I don't know what the hell he was trying to do, but he's gone anyway. So we're back in. I haven't fed anything yet again because that's why. Bite instantly. Because I can still see an odd fish blowing there, even though I've hooked the carp, he's gone mental. I don't think he'll need a topper. And that one's popped off as well. So let's try again. I don't know what happened then. Just sort of popped loose. Does happen with skimmers sometimes when they're just sort of flapping up on the surface. So let's drop in again. But that was instant, you know. No need to feed again. I can still see an odd little bubble, so I'm happy just to keep it as it is for now. The problem you get is the more you put in on top of this now, they can become really hard to catch. Obviously there's a lot of bait there for them to pick through. So it's like your hook bait almost gets covered by all the other feed that's there. It's harder for them to pick it out. So I don't want to like feed, if there's some fish there ready and there's still plenty of bait in the peg, I don't want to put more on top of them. There you are, there's a lift bite there then. Beautiful little bite. So what I've done is, when that fish broke me, I've just popped a 4-inch hook length on this time. Just because I was having like little indications and they weren't really like showing up as positive bites on the float. So because I've marked the depth, I've just put a 4-inch hook length on and just slid my float up 2-inch. To be honest, as it is now, it probably wouldn't be a bad thing to just take an 11 shot off that rig and just put it 2 inches from the hook, just to, you know, magnify those bites even more, because I think they're picking it up, they're not moving very far away with the hook bait in their mouth. Look at that nice brown one. Nice skimmer, nicely hooked there. That one was on a caster that time, so I'll go back with a caster again. Just keeping an eye out there, like I've just seen another one pimp up, so I'm not worried about topping that up still. Oh yeah, it's fizzing like mad there. Oh, little indication straight away. Hopefully now with this shorter hook length, should show those bites up a little bit quicker. Oh yeah, that just absolutely towed under that time. So that little shorter hook length has definitely done the trick. Probably a bit slow doing that, to be honest. I should have known better really. having like signs of not being able to catch one. But you can just see off this line now, this hasn't been fed since our initial feed, and it's just, those fish have come in there now, they've settled over that bait, and they're just sort of happy just to mill around there. Now there's enough bait there to hold them, so you don't have to worry about topping it up. So what have we got this time? Just that single caster on the hook. Nice fish that is, whatever it is. Oh yeah. Ooh. You have a go in this lake, fair play to him. So, popping back. You'll be amazed on this line how many you can catch without even thinking about feeding it. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is feed it too early because it'll just put the kibosh on it. So try and like eke it out for as long as you can, because sometimes you can feed it too early, they'll go and they just won't come back again. So let's see if we can just catch one or two more, and then see, we might have to give it a little top up and just see what happens after we top it up. Another lift bite again now. So I waited quite a while for that one, so as we're only pleasure fishing, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how much I top up with before, you know, before we lose the light. I'll show you how much will be top. So what I'll do, because we're only pleasure fishing, I'll show you how much I top up with. We'll give it a little top up and see if we can catch one or two fish off that top up before we call it a day. So let's pan him out. Ooh, shaking his head at me like that. Okay, so top up time on our loose groundbait line. What I'm going to do, I've got our loose stuff there. I just want to put a few more casters in, so I'm going to put a few more casters in that mix. And what I'm also going to do is just dampen that off, just a little touch again. And I'm just going to top it up with like a nice palmful of loose, sort of like that much, not loads, but still enough to hold some fish in your peg. I'm gonna feed this. We don't, you know, nothing to lose. It's only a, you know, a nice bit of pleasure fishing, but it's worth showing you like how much to top up with when the time comes. Well, we go with it. And then just in line with your far bank marker, just hold the cup down close to the water and just turn it over, give it a tap, get any loose casters out of there, and that's it. That is our top up. So we'll give that a minute or two now and then drop back in on it, see if we can catch a couple of fish just to finish off on. But now would be the time, when you've topped that up, swing round then to your little bit of slop line, and you can nick a few fish there before hopefully swinging back onto this line and having another good run like what we just had. So a few minutes has passed now since we put that top up in. I've been keeping a little eye on it, and I have seen still an odd little bubble pop up over it, so I think it's worth going in now. We'll see if we can finish off with a couple of fish off this top up before we wrap the day up. It'll be interesting to see how quick they've come back onto that feed, or if we've wrecked it, but we're soon going to find out, so let's have a look. Like, I'm shipping out now, I've just seen 2 more fish, well, not seen fish, but seen 2 more bubbles just pop up. Right. Let's get in there, and hopefully that top up was the right thing to do. There we go. That hadn't been in there long. 2 minutes or so since that top up. Another little lift bite. I'm kicking myself really that I've only put that 4-inch hook length on now. I should have put that on a lot earlier. Should have known better, but I've definitely learned something for next time I'm on the bank. That feels like a decent kind of a fish, that does. What I would say is when you top up on this line, because you're topping up with a bit of a volume of bait, like obviously you don't want to leave it too long, but the longer you can leave it the better sometimes. If you can just leave it for 10 to 15 minutes, that's ideal. We haven't really left that long enough there as if it was a match, but if you can sort of leave like a top up for that much bait for sort of 10 minutes, just let them settle back in over the feed, and I think you'll catch for longer. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, that's a big turkey plate, that is. That's a big boy. Oh, that went off like a prom dress when I hooked that. Look at him. Oh, if you don't mind umpire. Lovely little lift bite that was. Pop him back. We've definitely got a taste for these casters today. Right then. Roll. So we're on stage. So they haven't minded that top up by the look of it. So I think what we're going to do, I'm going to get this fish in and wrap it up, I think. So we'll have a little chat when I pack some stuff away, a little recap, and hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, if you could give it a subscribe, it does help the channel grow massively, and a little like as well won't go amiss. But if you don't want to, it doesn't matter. I'll still be putting up free videos a couple of times a week. So that's a nice fish to finish on. My silver one, he's got a fat little belly on him now. So let's get some kit packed away and then we'll have a little recap. So there you are, end of the session, and that was a magnificent session, to be fair. I hope there's a few bits in there that'll help you out. Don't forget, with a little bit of slop, through the day you'll have to keep adding a little bit of water to it, but just feed in, you know, those little tiny, little stodgy marbles. You'll be amazed how many fish you catch, and that's a great way just to start your session. Like I showed today, we've had probably a dozen or so fish the first hour and a half before we've gone on to our more positive line. So just with our little guru pot, I'm sure it's here somewhere, have I taken it off? Ah, there we are. So just use a little tiny guru pot, a little blob of our slop in there after every fish. Just kept us ticking over, hardly any bait, but it's a brilliant way to get an instant response and get your session off to a good start. And then on our more positive line, we fed our loose mix, again quite over wet, because like I said earlier on, I don't want it lingering in the water and floating around and that. So that sort of consistency. Just fed loose, some casters and that in there. Casters seems to be the way to catch them today, but we fed probably 100 mil on that to start. Didn't even go on it for probably an hour and 40 minutes. Waited until I could see an odd little sign on it, and then when we've dropped on it, we've had a magnificent run then. And then right at the end, we just topped it up just out of curiosity, and we've caught a couple more. But to be honest, I think I would have kept catching without that top up. I could have just carried on till the end of the session, but it's nice just to see how to top it up. So that's the two ways I fed it. You've seen my favourite mix, that crushed expander, green supreme, F1 dark mixed, 2 crush, and then 1 F1 dark, 1 green supreme. And as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and we've done some eating because we've caught a fish a chuck for most of the session. So that's the end of another session. I hope you've enjoyed. Like I said earlier on, if you could subscribe, it would be mega for this channel to help us grow. The more we can grow, the more I can get out and do stuff on the bank. Like I always say, any questions, put them in the comments. Anything you'd like to see tutorial wise, put it in the comments. I've got a match this weekend, so I'm going to film that. That'll be on next week. So I'll catch up with you next week on a live match.